In this chapter, we'll be reviewing interest groups and lobbying in Texas. The learning objectives. You are to describe interest group typology, discuss the various techniques interest groups use, including lobbying, explain how interest groups are regulated, and describe the factors that influence interest group strengths. Interest group typology. Interest groups may be formed for any reason and may represent any interest. Many groups have both national and state organizations. The characteristics of interest groups vary. Some are permanent, others are temporary. They rise and they fall given whatever issue they are interested in. There are some that are private membership organizations. These are memberships that have individuals or businesses as part of their organizations, so like the Chamber of Commerce of San Antonio. Non-membership organizations represent individuals or single businesses that are not open to the general public, and government organizations represent local governments. Membership organizations. These groups represent a wide range of economic and non-economic interests within the state. Peak business organizations represent a united front against policies harmful to businesses. Trade associations are an interest group, such as the Texas Oil and Gas Association, represent a more specific business interest. Then you have multiple types of trade associations, like the agricultural interests that operate in Texas, including those that represent farming interests, commodity groups, and suppliers. Then there are also retail trade associations, such as Texas Automobile Dealers Association, that protect the trades from unfavorable regulations and policies. Membership organizations. In professional associations, memberships typically hold a professional license, and the state regulates their scope of practice. Some of the best known of these groups represent physicians and attorneys. Public school educators are represented by multiple interest groups. So basically, any profession you choose to follow here in Texas, you will belong to some type of interest group. I belong to a couple of, or as they pointed out here, multiple interest groups, right? Higher education, political science, so on and so forth. Public sector employee organizations are another type of professionalized organizations in Texas. In other states, these groups would be classified as public sector labor unions, but Texas does not allow collective bargaining for public employees. Private sector labor unions do exist in Texas, but their influence has been on the decline. Texas is one of 27 states with the right to work laws, meaning a person cannot be denied employment based on membership or non-membership in a labor organization. This slide presents states with the right to work or anti-union laws. You can see Texas is in the blue. It has a right to work state. Most of the Republican states are right to work. Forced unionism lies in New Mexico, Colorado, and California, and so on and so forth. Non-membership organizations form the largest category of interest groups. Nearly 2,000 are registered in Texas. They do not have active members. Rather, they represent a single company, organization, corporation, or individual. For example, Bank of America and Valero Energy Corporation are both registered as political action committees with the Texas Ethics Commission. Government organizations. Some government organizations have active members, but they are considered separately from membership groups. Also known as state and local groups, they represent an organization rather than an interest of individual members. Their goal is to protect local government interests from actions of state legislature, the governor, and state agencies. For example, the Texas Association of Firefighters and the Texas Association of School Board. Interest groups strive to influence government and public policy decisions using a variety of techniques. The technique depends on the type of group and resources. Primary techniques: lobbying, electioneering, public education and grassroots lobbying, and litigation. Other tactics include petitions, protests, marches, and demonstrations. Lobbying is the practice of trying to influence members of the legislature. The term may have grown out of practice of waiting in the lobby of the legislative chamber. Lobbying is regulated by state and federal laws and therefore involves a strictly defined set of activities, all aimed at convincing legislators to promote an interest group's agenda. Note that the executive branch and regulatory agencies can also be lobbied. Lobbying activities of interest groups may include contacting the legislator to express your support for or oppose the legislation, convincing legislators to propose legislation, file a bill favorable to the group, working with legislators to draft a legislation, testify about the effect of a proposed legislation, encourage members of an interest group to contact their legislators regarding legislation, issuing press releases and buying ad spaces and providing written material to the legislature. Interest groups often provide research finding to members of the legislature and their staff. It's often accurate and can be important resources for state legislators and can have a positive impact on public policy. Several business-sponsored groups in Texas have developed a reputation for providing quality research and information. Such a reputation can be critically important because if you do not present the correct data, you will be cut off from a legislator. So it's really simple to lose your contact with them if you're not truthful. The tricks of the trade for lobbying in Texas. Number one, never lie to a member of the legislature. If you do that, they will not listen to you at all. Number two, preparation, preparation, preparation. Number three, know what you don't know and be willing to admit it. Don't lie, because if you lie, they find out, you will no longer have their ear. Number four, there are some things you can't control. Number five, information is the currency of the realm. 6, only speak when it improves the silence. In other words, just don't talk to talk. Number 7, don't write it down. And especially don't put it in an email unless you're comfortable waking up and seeing it as a headline on the front page of the Houston Chronicle. Number 8, the reply to all button is not your friend. And number 9, be prepared to forge strange alliances. Sometimes you're going to end up working with someone that you wouldn't normally work with to move forward on a public policy. Compromise when you can, hold firm when you must. Never ask members for a vote you know they can't take back in the district. Be ever present at the Capitol during the session. Know the calendar rules better than anyone else. Money will never buy you a vote. Treat everyone with respect. Legislation, like water, takes the path of the least resistant. Do everything possible to make a staffer's life easier. And finally, remember that no man's life, liberty, or property are safe while the legislature is in session. Contract lobbyists are hired to represent a client or an individual group or organization. In-house lobbyists engage in lobbying as part of their job with a particular business or association. Governmental lobbyists and legislative liaisons also lobby as part of their job. Citizen or volunteer lobbyists are not paid workers representing citizen groups and organizations. Private individuals, sometimes called hobbyists, act on their own behalf. Electioneering encompasses various activities of interest groups in helping candidates sympathetic to their cause win public office. A group's most important resource is the pursuit of money, usually contributed to campaigns and funneled to candidates through PACs. At the national level, PACs must register with the Federal Elections Committee. Note that money doesn't guarantee outcomes in an election or public policy debates, but it will guarantee that they will listen to you. The process of electioneering begins with recruiting candidates many months before an election. Some interest groups encourage both Democrats and Republican candidates to seek nominations in their respective parties. Interest groups may also make a public endorsement of a candidate, run television ads and newspaper ads, undertake voter registration drives and get out the vote campaigns, and help organize rallies and fundraisers. Through public relation, interest groups aim to influence public opinion regarding a particular issue and to create a favorable public image for the group. They might sponsor an educational program, publish educational literature, or counter the information provided by a competing group. Using grassroots lobbying, a group tries to mobilize supporters to advocate on their behalf. Groups also try to curry favor with public officials. They might invite officials to address a meeting or give awards to thank them for their service. Litigation. The court system provides another means of advancing a group's cause and influencing policy. Groups file lawsuits against individuals, organizations, or governmental entities. They may sponsor litigation themselves, orchestrating and filing a lawsuit on behalf of their members. When not a party to litigation, they may file an amicus curiae or friend of the court briefs to try to influence the court's decision. The regulation of interest groups. Most states have laws regulating lobbying and campaign finance. The Texas Ethics Commission enforces laws related to lobbying, fundraising, and spending, and financial disclosures by state officials. For example, lobbyists are required to register if they receive more than $1,000 per quarter for their efforts or spend more than $500 on a state official or employees or their families. There are exemptions to the registration requirement. Regulations of interest groups. In Texas, PACs must also register, designate a treasurer, and file a periodic report on contributions and expenditures. They must provide the name and occupation of those who donated more than $50 in a given reporting period. They are prohibited from contributions to legislatures from 30 days before the session begins to 20 days after the regular session. State law does not limit the amount that they can contribute. In 2020, Citizens United decision allows a generally expanded role of PACs in electioneering communication. Factors influencing the strength of interest groups. Resources available to an interest group vary according to the type of groups, the number of members, and who those members are. For example, the Association of Texas Professional Educators and the Texas Municipal League. Some groups have difficulty recruiting members and money due to their free rider problem, the ability to derive benefits from the group's efforts without participating. In other words, there are some people in the group that don't do anything but benefit. That is a free rider. The status and the size of a group are important determinants of the power. Conclusion. Interest groups are a necessary part of the political process, and government efforts to control such groups are and should be limited. The influence of interest groups in Texas, especially PACs, is likely to grow in the years ahead, especially given the low levels of participation and the decentralized structure of the state government.